Sunday dinner at my mother's house had turned into a monthly ritual of quiet punishment, an obligation wrapped in forced smiles and old, unhealed wounds. That evening, as I stepped into the dining room, the air felt heavier than usual, like something rancid had been simmering long before I arrived. They were all already seated, Mom presiding at the head of the table like a judge prepared to deliver a sentence. Richard and Lisa whispering on one side, Aunt Nancy and Uncle Anthony perched on the other, their eyes avoiding mine. And in front of my usual chair lay a neat stack of legal papers, placed with the precision of an executioner's tools. "What's this?" I asked, fingers brushing the top page, the paper strangely warm, as if touched moments earlier by someone eager to see my reaction. "Sit down, Jessica," Mum said. Her voice carried that brittle authority she used whenever betrayal was dressed up as family duty. "We need to talk, all of us." I sat, though every muscle in my shoulders hardened in anticipation. My eyes skimmed the document. A quit-claim deed. My mother's house, my house, transferred from me to Richard. "I'm not signing this," I said, the words calm, though a quiet rage curled low in my chest, old and patient, like unfinished business. "Don't be dramatic," Mom replied. "Richard and Lisa are expecting. They need a proper home. This place is too big for just you and your mother, and frankly, you've been selfish keeping it to yourself." "Keeping my house to myself?" I repeated, each syllable slow, edged with something cold. "The family home," Richard corrected smugly. "Mum raised us here. It means something, and let's be honest, you didn't really earn it." I looked at my brother, 3 years older, and yet perpetually drifting, unemployed, entitled, living in someone else's basement like a long-term echo of failure. I tried to recall the last time he'd held a job longer than 6 months. "I didn't earn it," I echoed. "You know what he means," Lisa snapped, eager to join the ambush. "You were just living here when your mum had her troubles. You took advantage." Mum's bankruptcy, 7 years ago. The moment everything had teetered on the edge. The threat of losing the home she'd lived in for 3 decades. The home Richard and I had grown up in. The home I'd saved while they watched. "Jessica," Mum said, leaning back as if invoking reason. "You were living here rent-free. Transferring the house to you protected it, but Richard's starting a family now, so it's time to transfer it back. Temporarily." "Temporarily," I repeated. "For protection?" "Exactly. You've had 7 years of free housing. Richard and Lisa need it more." I looked around the table, not a single flicker of doubt. Their faces were masks carved from the same wood, expectant, judgmental, already imagining the victory. "So, let me understand," I said softly. "You want me to sign over the house? Because Richard's reproducing?" "Finally," Richard said with a smirk. "She gets it. And you all think I've been living here rent-free for 7 years. Well, obviously," Aunt Nancy said, "it's your mother's house. Why would you pay rent?" "Why indeed," I murmured. I pulled out my phone. My hands were steady. Too steady. Rage does that when it sinks deep enough to become clarity. I opened the folder with every financial record from the past 7 years. Receipts, transfers, cancelled checks, proof preserved for moments exactly like this, when family memory became a weapon. "Before I sign anything," I said, "let's clear up a few details about that bankruptcy." "There's nothing to clear up," Mum snapped. "I had debt. The court would have taken the house. We transferred it to you to protect it. Now it goes to Richard. Simple." "Mum," I said quietly, "do you remember who paid off your bankruptcy plan?" She waved a dismissive hand. "The court handled it. That's what bankruptcy is." "Chapter 13 requires repayment," I said. "Someone funded that repayment. Do you remember who?" Silence spread across the table like a dark stain. "I paid $47,000 over 3 years," I continued. "I have every receipt." "That's not..." "And before the bankruptcy, I paid $63,000 in back mortgage payments to stop foreclosure. The house had been in default for 8 months. Richard blinked. "Dad said the bank made a deal." "The bank made a deal because I paid what was owed." My voice stayed even as another old wound pulsed. And I paid an additional $28,000 to bring property taxes current. Total, $138,000 to save this house. Lisa recovered first. Even if that's true, you were living here. You benefited. I was living here paying $12,400 a month in rent, I said. I have 7 years of cancelled checks. Mum's face darkened. That money was for household expenses. It was rent, I said softly. You deposited it as rent. You reported it as rental income on your taxes. The room fell into a thick, stunned quiet. A moment suspended, ripe with resentment, denial, and the first whispers of retribution. Or you should have, I said. We can always confirm with the IRS if you're feeling brave. Richard scoffed, but there was a flicker, just a flicker of unease. This is ridiculous. Even if you paid whatever, the house still belonged to Mom. You were just helping out, doing your part. The house belonged to Mum, I said quietly, until the bankruptcy court transferred it to me as part of the restructuring. That wasn't charity. That wasn't a favour. That was a legal mandate. I opened the court records on my phone, the cold glow of the screen washing over my hands. Chapter 13, Case number 2016-248392, filed March 2016. Final order entered December 2016. Let me read you the part you keep pretending doesn't exist. I cleared my throat, not for effect, just to steady the rising fury coiling beneath my ribs. Petitioner's primary residence, located at 45521 Oakmont Drive, shall be transferred to daughter Jessica to satisfy secured debt obligations and prevent foreclosure. Transfer is permanent and irrevocable as condition of debt discharge. I looked up. Let them sit with that. Permanent and irrevocable. 7 years ago. Mum shook her head, as if denying a courtroom order would make it vanish. But you said it was temporary. You told me you were just holding it. I told you I'd protect it. I told you I'd make sure you had a place to live. Not that ownership would magically boomerang back to you whenever Richard felt ready to play homeowner. That's the same thing? It's absolutely not. Their silence was thick enough to wade through. You've lived here rent-free for 7 years because I let you, I continued. Richard stayed here rent-free whenever he was between jobs, which is my generous way of describing chronic unemployment. Again, because I allowed it. Richard's expression twisted. I can't believe you're throwing that in my face. I'm not throwing anything, I said. I'm clarifying who owns the house you're also eager to take from me. Uncle Anthony finally spoke, his voice heavy with false reason. Jessica, even if the house is legally yours, surely you can see Richard needs it more. You're single, successful. You can buy another place. Richard has a baby on the way. Richard has a baby on the way, I echoed, and no job. Again. That's temporary, Lisa shot back. He's between opportunities. He's been between opportunities for 15 years. Their outrage rippled through the room, but beneath it I sensed something else. Fear that the old hierarchy was collapsing. I've worked since I was 16, I continued. I paid off Mum's debts. I saved this house. I've maintained it alone for 7 years. But family helps family, Aunt Nancy insisted. And I helped, I said, to the tune of $138,000 to save it, and another $85,000 to keep it from falling apart since. The number cracked across the room like a strike. Mum's voice was barely a whisper. 85. Roof, 22,000. HVAC, 14. Kitchen, 31. Bathroom, 12. Foundation, 6. That's before property taxes, insurance, repairs. I helped with some of that, Mum said quickly. I paid something toward the kitchen. You contributed $3,000, I said. I covered the remaining 28. Richard lurched to his feet. This is insane. You're really going to count every dollar. We're family. And you're really going to demand I hand over a house worth $520,000? A house I paid for, saved and sustained while you floated between opportunities? Mum needs a place to live, Richard snapped. Mum has a place, I said. This one. She lives here rent-free. and she can stay for the rest of her life if she wants. But you're not getting the deed. Jessica, Mum pleaded, her voice stretching into that familiar, manipulative softness. Be reasonable. Richard deserves a chance at home ownership. You've had your time here. It's his turn. His turn, I said, would mean him buying a house with his own money, from his own job. I have job prospects, Richard said, chin lifting. You've had job prospects for 15 years. Lisa rose beside him like a shadow. This is unbelievably selfish. We're trying to start a family, and you're hoarding a house you don't even need. I live here, I said. I pay for it. I maintain it. That's not hoarding. My voice stayed calm. But beneath the calm, something far older, sharper, and colder stirred. An understanding that tonight would be remembered as the moment the scales shifted, the moment retribution finally opened its eyes. That's home ownership, I said. Living in the place you pay for, maintain, and bleed for, not inheriting it by ambush. You could buy another house tomorrow if you wanted, Lisa pressed, her voice bright and brittle like she thought volume could overpower truth. So could Richard, I said, if he had a job, savings, or any financial history that isn't a parade of debt and bankruptcy. Richard's head snapped up. How dare you? How dare I what? I asked, tilting my head. Recite documented facts? He flushed. I didn't soften. Richard, you filed bankruptcy 3 years ago. You defaulted on student loans for a degree you never finished. You've been evicted twice. No bank would offer you a mortgage if you mailed them a fruit basket with your application. That's why he needs this house, Mom pleaded, panic creeping into her voice. He can't qualify on his own. And that, I said, is exactly why I won't sign it over. This house is worth more than $500,000. It's my financial security, my future, my retirement. Your retirement? Mum's voice sharpened. You're 31. Yes, I said, and I intend to retire someday with assets I protected, not surrendered out of guilt. The walls felt close, the tension humming like trapped electricity. I walked to the window, looking out at the garden I had carved from neglected dirt, a yard built through early mornings, sore muscles, and the quiet kind of pride no one at the table had ever acknowledged. Let me tell you exactly what would happen if I signed this house over, I said, my reflection staring back at me from the glass, eyes steady. Within 2 years, probably less, Richard would fall behind on property taxes. The county would place a lien. He wouldn't have the savings to fix it. He wouldn't qualify for a loan. Eventually, the house would go to tax sale. You'd all lose it. That won't happen, Richard protested. It is exactly what happened to Mom, I said, and history has a habit of repeating itself when no one learns a damn thing. This is different, Mum insisted. How? I asked softly. Richard has the same habits you had. No steady income, no savings, no financial discipline. You were saved only because I sacrificed everything I had. Without me, you would have lost it all. He will too. Aunt Nancy tried a gentler tactic. Jessica, what if we put it in writing? Richard could promise to let you live here as long as you want. Like the last temporary agreement that was supposed to protect Mum's house, I said. No, I'll pass. You're being cruel, Mum whispered, tears rising. No, I said. I'm being clear. There's a difference. Uncle Anthony reached for his phone, still clinging to the illusion of neutrality. Let me look up the case. What was the number? 2016-248392, I said. He typed. His expression shifted as he read. Jesus, Jessica. She's right. The judge ordered a permanent transfer. It's explicit. I know, I said quietly. I was standing in the courtroom when the judge signed it. Aunt Nancy looked stunned. Why didn't you tell us? I tried, I said. Every time I mentioned the bankruptcy or the transfer, someone cut me off because it was boring legal stuff. Richard snatched the phone from Uncle Anthony, scanned the order, and his face drained of colour. It says Mum agreed to the permanent transfer. She did, I said. In writing in front of the judge, it was the only way to satisfy her creditors. Her attorney explained it 3 times. I didn't understand what I was signing, Mum protested weakly. You understood, I said softly. You just didn't like it. But you liked it better than homelessness, and those were the options. Silence fell. Thick, suffocating, absolute. So that's it? Lisa finally said. You're keeping the house and kicking Richard's family to the street? Richard's family, I said, currently lives in your parents' basement. That's not the street. And I'm not kicking anyone out. I'm simply declining to hand my home to someone who is incapable of maintaining it. What are we supposed to do? Richard asked. For the first time, his voice wasn't angry. It was lost, hollow, stripped of entitlement. What every adult does, I said gently, though my words cut clean. Get a stable job, build credit, save, buy your own home when you're ready. That could take years, he whispered. It took me years, I said. I worked 2 jobs through my 20s. I ate cheap food. I saved every dollar. I earned what I have. With Mum's house as your foundation, Aunt Nancy said, an accusation slipping beneath her tone. With $138,000 of my money, I corrected softly, rescuing a house that would have vanished without me. The silence that followed felt like the moment before a storm breaks, charged, trembling, inevitable. Mom didn't give me a foundation, I said quietly. She gave me a crisis. I turned that crisis into an asset with my own hands. Mum rose from her chair, her face streaked with tears, her posture collapsing into grief and accusation. I can't believe my own daughter would do this to her family. I can't believe my own family would try to take my house, I replied, without even acknowledging that it is mine. Where am I supposed to go? She whispered. You're not going anywhere. You live here. You always have a place in my home. But it is my house. And Richard... I met her gaze, steady, unflinching. Richard needs to figure out his own housing the way I did, the way adults do. Across the table, Richard seized the quitclaim deed, tore it in half, and threw the pieces to the floor like a child caught in the first real consequence of his life. Fine, he spat. Keep your precious house. Don't expect me to talk to you ever again. I'll survive, I said softly, and I meant it. They stormed out, doors slamming, Lisa muttering a string of insults, Richard cursing under his breath. Aunt Nancy and Uncle Anthony followed more slowly. The weight of reality had settled differently on them. At the doorway, Uncle Anthony paused. For what it's worth, he murmured, you're not wrong. Your mum's bankruptcy was a disaster. I helped her navigate the paperwork. You saved her. Richard would ruin everything you've built. Thank you, I said, and meant that too. When the house finally emptied, Mum remained at the table, small and carved by disappointment. You really won't give Richard the house, she said at last. No, I answered. I won't give away an asset I spent 7 years and more than $200,000 protecting and rebuilding. I thought you did all that for me, she whispered. I did, and I did it for myself. Both can be true at the same time. Richard will never forgive you. Richard will manage, I said. He just has to learn to take care of himself instead of waiting for someone else to rescue him. Her voice cracked. When did you become so hard? When I had to, I said. When I was 24, working 16-hour days to drag both of us out of bankruptcy. When every dollar mattered. While Richard was defaulting on loans for a degree he abandoned. You didn't notice me getting hard, Mum, because you were always too busy noticing Richard's potential. She had no answer for that. I'm going to my room, she said, defeated. I need to lie down. Your room, I agreed. In my house, where you are always welcome. When she disappeared down the hall, I sat alone at the dining table, the torn deed scattered across the wood like remnants of a failed coup. The silence felt heavier now, but cleaner, like a wound finally exposed to air. My phone buzzed, a text from Uncle Anthony. Sent you the bankruptcy records. Keep them safe. Richard seems like he might try something. Another text from an unknown number. This is Lisa. You're selfish and karma will get you. I blocked the number without hesitation. Then I opened my laptop, my Armor, and pulled up every document that told the real story. The mortgage satisfaction letter, the tax receipts, 7 years of punctual payments, and the deed naming me the sole owner. Proof built from sleepless nights, from double shifts, from sacrifice my family never witnessed, and certainly never respected. I had saved this house at 24 when I knew nothing about bankruptcy law, mortgages, or property rights. I had learned because desperation forced me to. I had worked multiple jobs, eaten cheap food, lived like a ghost so this place could survive. And all the while, my family assumed I was coasting rent-free on Mum's generosity. They never saw the war behind the walls they now wanted to seize. But now they knew. I owned this place. I had owned it for 7 years. I had rescued it, rebuilt it, guarded it like something sacred, and I wasn't giving it to anyone. My phone buzzed again. "Mum," Richard called. "He's very upset. Can we talk more about this tomorrow?" I typed my answer carefully. "The house isn't up for discussion, but I love you, and you're always welcome here." No reply. I walked through the rooms, my rooms. The kitchen I had rebuilt piece by piece, the walls I had painted, the floors I had refinished with my own hands. Every corner bore the imprint of work no one else had done. This wasn't the family home. It was mine. The home I forged out of bankruptcy's rubble. The home Richard wanted simply because he felt entitled to comfort he never earned. I filled a glass of water and raised it toward the empty dining room. To ownership. To boundaries. To the difference between earning something and demanding it be surrendered. The house was quiet, protected by court orders, deeds, and 7 years of cancelled checks, each one a testament to who saved this place. Tomorrow, Richard would still rage, Mum would still grieve, Lisa would still send venom from blocked numbers. But tomorrow, just like today, I would still own my house. And that was exactly how it should be.